Chapter 1. Introduction to the Werewolf Legend. Few creatures in myth and legend evoke as much fear, fascination, and mystery as the werewolf. Half human, half beast, the werewolf embodies the primal forces of nature, untamed and wild, lurking just beneath the surface of civilization. For centuries, tales of humans transforming into wolves have haunted the imagination of cultures across the globe. These stories, steeped in folklore and superstition, suggest a darker side to humanity, a side capable of reverting to a feral, uncontrollable state under the light of the full moon. At the core of the werewolf legend is the terrifying concept of transformation, of a person losing their human identity and becoming something driven purely by instinct. This metamorphosis, often depicted as painful and horrifying, taps into ancient fears of losing control of the animal within all of us breaking free. The werewolf is not just a physical transformation, it is a symbol of the thin line between civilization and savagery. But what is it about the werewolf that has captivated human minds for so long? Why does this legend endure in so many cultures, from the forests of medieval Europe to the deserts of North America? And how did the werewolf come to embody such powerful themes of fear, power, and transformation? The werewolf across cultures. The story of the werewolf is not confined to one place or one time. In fact, it is one of the most widespread myths in human history. From the ancient Greeks to the Vikings, from indigenous tribes in North America to modern-day cryptozoologists, the belief in shapeshifters who transform into wolves or wolf-like creatures can be found across continents. In ancient Greece, the werewolf legend can be traced back to the myth of King Lycan, who, after angering Zeus, was transformed into a wolf as punishment. This story gave birth to the term lycanthropy, which is still used today to describe both the mythical condition of transforming into a wolf and the psychological disorder in which individuals believe they can shape-shift into animals. In Norse mythology, fierce warriors known as Ulfednar wore the skins of wolves and fought with the ferocity of the beasts they emulated. These men were believed to channel the spirit of the wolf in battle, becoming something more than human, something terrifyingly powerful. This link between warriors and wolves is a theme that repeats in many cultures, where the wolf is seen as a symbol of strength, ferocity, and primal survival. In Native American lore, stories of skinwalkers, witches who could transform into animals, including wolves, add another layer to the werewolf myth. The skinwalker is feared not only for its ability to change shape, but for the dark magic it wields, using its powers for evil. In these traditions, shape-shifting is often tied to spiritual or supernatural forces, hinting that the werewolf may not be merely a physical phenomenon, but something tied to deeper, unseen forces in the world. Werewolves in modern pop culture. While the werewolf's roots are deeply embedded in ancient mythology, its presence in modern pop culture is undeniable. From the classic 1941 film The Wolfman to more recent portrayals in Harry Potter and Twilight, the werewolf has evolved into a complex character, often torn between its human and animal nature. Unlike vampires, which are often portrayed as seductive and refined, werewolves are typically depicted as raw, brutal, and uncontrollable, emphasizing the chaos of transformation. In many modern interpretations, the werewolf's curse becomes a metaphor for the human condition. It's not just about physical transformation, it's about losing control, grappling with inner demons, and confronting the beast within. This internal struggle resonates with audiences because it speaks to a fundamental aspect of being human: the battle between our rational, civilized selves and our untamed, emotional instincts. A mystery that endures. But beyond pop culture and mythology, the werewolf legend still holds sway over the imagination of those who seek the unknown. In the world of cryptozoology, the study of hidden or undiscovered creatures, there are those who believe that the werewolf may not be just a myth. Sightings of large, wolf-like humanoids, particularly the dogmen in North America, fuel speculation that werewolves could be more than just stories. They could be a cryptid waiting to be discovered. These sightings, often reported in remote areas, describe creatures standing upright, with the head and body of a wolf, yet the posture of a man. Unlike traditional wolves, these beings are said to move like humans, their intelligence and awareness more akin to a person than a wild animal. Whether these reports are based on misidentifications, hoaxes, or something truly mysterious, they continue to fuel the belief that werewolves, or creatures like them, may exist in the shadows of our world. Why the legend persists. The persistence of the werewolf myth can be attributed to more than just fear. The werewolf represents a part of us, our wildness, our connection to nature, and our fear of losing control. In a world increasingly dominated by technology and order, the werewolf is a reminder that we are still animals, still part of the natural world, and still subject to its forces. It reminds us that beneath the veneer of civilization lies something primal, something untamed. This is why the werewolf continues to capture the imagination. It embodies the unknown, the transformation of the familiar into the terrifying. It stands as a symbol of humanity's ongoing struggle to reconcile its rational mind with its wild heart. In the chapters that follow, we will journey deeper into the origins of the werewolf legend, explore the historical accounts and trials, dive into the mechanics of shape-shifting, and examine the modern theories that keep this mystery alive. The werewolf may be a creature of legend, but its influence and its mystery remain very real. Chapter 2. Ancient Origins of the Werewolf. The legend of the werewolf stretches back far beyond the realms of modern horror films and medieval superstitions. It has ancient roots, embedded in the very myths and spiritual beliefs of early civilizations. Long before werewolves prowled the pages of European folklore, they were part of humanity's collective imagination, a symbol of transformation, power, and primal fear. These early tales reveal a complex relationship between man and nature, where the boundary between human and animal was not as clear as it is today. The concept of a human shifting into a wolf, or something wolf-like, emerges from a time when people believed deeply in the power of the natural world. To become a wolf was to step into the wildness of nature itself, to gain its strength and ferocity, but also to risk losing one's humanity forever. Lycan and the Curse of Zeus, the werewolf in Greek mythology. One of the earliest and most well-known stories of human transformation into a wolf comes from ancient Greek mythology, where the tale of King Lycan serves as a dark moral lesson. According to legend, Lycan was a powerful king of Arcadia, known for his arrogance and cruelty. Seeking to test the gods, he invited Zeus to a banquet, and a shocking display of disrespect served the king of the gods a meal made from the flesh of a sacrificed child. Zeus, enraged by this blasphemous act, decided to punish Lycan in the most fitting way possible, by turning him into the very thing he acted like, a beast. The transformation was swift and brutal. Lycan was cursed to roam the earth as a wolf, his humanity stripped away, leaving only the savage instincts of a predator. His name would forever be linked with the word lycanthropy, which still refers to the transformation of a person into a wolf or wolf-like creature. This story of Lycan's fall from king to beast resonated deeply in Greek culture, symbolizing the dangers of hubris and the thin line between civilization and barbarism. It also introduced the concept of the werewolf as a creature born from a curse, one whose transformation is linked to divine punishment and moral corruption. The Norse berserkers, warriors who became wolves. In contrast to the Greek vision of werewolves as a form of punishment, the Norse mythology of the Viking Age viewed the transformation into a wolf as a source of power, albeit one tinged with uncontrollable rage. The Norse had legends of warriors known as Ulfhednar, men who wore the skins of wolves and fought with the strength and ferocity of the beasts they emulated. These warriors were said to have the ability to enter a trance-like state, becoming almost animalistic in their battle frenzy, immune to pain, and capable of feats of superhuman strength. These Ulfhednar, along with their bear-skin-wearing counterparts, the berserkers, were feared and revered in equal measure. They were believed to be possessed by the spirit of the animals whose skins they wore, allowing them to fight with the wolf's instincts and ferocity. Yet, this gift came at a cost. Their humanity was often seen as slipping away in the heat of battle, replaced by the savagery of the animal within. To the Norse, wolves were both feared and respected. Wolves were seen as powerful creatures, closely tied to the gods. Fenrir, the giant wolf destined to bring about the end of the world in Ragnarok, and his wolf offspring, Skoll and Hati, who chased the sun and moon, highlight the deep symbolic role wolves played in Norse cosmology. The Ulfednar represented a merging of man and beast, drawing on this ancient connection to the wolf's power. Unlike the cursed transformation of Lycan, the Norse view of the werewolf-like warrior was not one of punishment but of choice. These warriors willingly embraced their animalistic side to gain strength in battle, reflecting the idea that humans can tap into their inner wildness when necessary. However, like the Greek stories, there was a sense of danger in this transformation, the risk of becoming too much wolf and losing the human self entirely. Werewolves in early European and Eastern traditions. Outside of the Greek and Norse myths, the idea of humans transforming into wolves, or being closely connected to wolves, appears in early European and even Eastern traditions. In some ancient Slavic and Balkan folklore, people were believed to become wolves after breaking certain taboos or as a result of a curse. In these stories, much like the Greek myths, the transformation was often a punishment, a way to force someone into exile, both physically and morally. In ancient Rome, the historian Pliny the Elder wrote about men who could turn into wolves after consuming certain herbs or performing specific rituals. These were seen not as divine punishments but as occult practices, where the transformation was tied to dark magic and witchcraft. These early tales introduced the idea that werewolves could be created through intentional means, through magic, ritual, or the use of potions and charms. In the Middle East, stories of shapeshifters are more often associated with jackals or hyenas than wolves, but the theme remains similar: humans who can cross the boundary into the animal world, often to gain power or cause harm. These stories of human-animal transformations, though different in detail, all touch upon the same deep-rooted fears and fascinations with the unknown forces that control both human and animal life. A common thread: the fear of losing control. What ties all these ancient stories together is the underlying fear of losing control, of crossing the boundary between human and beast. In each culture, the werewolf or wolf-like figure represents the potential for humanity to slip into savagery, to lose the veneer of civilization, and become consumed by primal instincts. For the ancient Greeks, this was a divine punishment, a fall from grace that stripped a person of their human identity. For the Norse, it was a double-edged sword, a source of power that could easily turn into uncontrollable rage. And for the early Europeans and Romans, the werewolf was both a magical curse and a moral lesson, a reminder that delving too deeply into the unknown could lead to a permanent loss of humanity. These stories laid the foundation for the werewolf legends that would evolve in the Middle Ages and beyond, stories that would blend superstition, fear, and a fascination with the wildness lurking inside us all. But in each tale, the transformation from man to wolf is never just physical. It is a symbolic crossing from order into chaos, from control into madness. As we move forward in exploring the werewolf myth, these ancient origins remind us that the werewolf is not just a monster, but a reflection of something deeply human. It represents the eternal struggle to contain the animal within, a battle that continues to resonate with us today. Chapter 3: Medieval Europe, Fear and Superstition. In the dark woods of medieval Europe, where the line between civilization and wilderness was razor thin, the legend of the werewolf took on new and terrifying dimensions. This was an era where superstition ruled, where the unexplained was often attributed to malevolent forces, and where the woods, always at the edge of towns and villages, were home to both real and imagined dangers. It is here, in the shadow of the medieval mind, that the werewolf transformed from a distant myth into a tangible threat. The Middle Ages were rife with fear of the unknown, fear of the wilderness, fear of the dark. Werewolves embodied all of these anxieties, becoming the personification of the dangers that lurked just beyond the safety of the village walls. They were seen not merely as wild animals, but as cursed beings, humans who had succumbed to the beast within. In this period, the werewolf legend became inseparable from ideas of sin, punishment, and the terrifying notion that any one neighbor, stranger, or even family could fall prey to the curse and transform into a monster. Werewolves in the Church: sin, heresy, and transformation. As Christianity spread across Europe, the werewolf legend became increasingly entangled with the teachings of the Church. The idea of the werewolf as a man cursed by God for his sins resonated deeply in a time when the Church wielded immense power over people's lives and beliefs. The transformation into a wolf, in many cases, was seen as a form of divine punishment for moral transgressions. In these stories, werewolves were not just victims of some supernatural curse, they were sinners paying the ultimate price for their misdeeds. The Church also saw the werewolf as a symbol of heresy. Much like witches, werewolves were thought to be in league with the devil, using dark powers to transform into wolves and carry out wicked deeds under the cover of night. This link between werewolves, witchcraft, and Satanism became more prominent during the Inquisition, when anything that deviated from Christian norms was labeled as heretical or demonic. The werewolf, once a creature of myth, was now a tool of the devil, sent to sow chaos and terror among the faithful. The transformation from man to wolf was viewed as a perversion of God's natural order, a blasphemous act that inverted the human soul into something monstrous. In many ways, the medieval werewolf represented the ultimate sin, the loss of humanity, both physical and spiritual. To transform into a beast was to fall from grace, to lose one's place in the divine hierarchy of creation. The werewolf trials, fear turns deadly. Just as witches were hunted and tried for their supposed powers during the witch hunts of the 16th and 17th centuries, so too were those suspected of being werewolves. These werewolf trials, particularly in France and Germany, revealed the depth of fear and superstition that gripped medieval and early modern Europe. Much like the witch trials, accusations of lycanthropy, werewolfism, were often based on hysteria, scapegoating, and paranoia, with the accused subjected to brutal torture until they confessed. One of the most infamous cases is that of Peter Stubb, a German farmer who, in 1589, was accused of being a werewolf. According to historical accounts, Stubb was said to have made a pact with the devil, who gave him a magical belt that allowed him to transform into a wolf. In his wolf form, Stubb supposedly terrorized the countryside, attacking and killing livestock and people alike. After being captured, Stubb was tortured until he confessed to his crimes, after which he was executed in one of the most gruesome public displays of the time. Similarly, in France, the werewolf trials reached a fever pitch during the late 16th century. In 1573, the Beast of Gévaudan, a wolf-like creature that killed dozens of villagers, was widely believed to be a werewolf. Though the true identity of the beast remains a mystery, many suspect it was simply a large wolf. The belief in werewolves was so strong that people lived in constant fear, patrolling the forest for signs of the cursed creature. The werewolf trials, like the witch hunts, were rooted in a blend of fear, superstition, and the desire for control. In a world where death and danger were ever present, where disease, war, and famine were constant threats, the idea of an evil force manifesting as a wolf, something predatory, untamable, and impossible to predict, struck a deep chord. It was easier to believe that such evils could be blamed on dark magic and supernatural creatures than to face the harsh realities of life in medieval Europe. The role of wolves in European folklore. The wolf, as an animal, played a central role in shaping the medieval concept of the werewolf. In Europe, wolves were both feared and admired, but mostly they were seen as dangerous predators. In a time when livestock were a vital part of survival, wolves posed a real and persistent threat to village life. They were often associated with darkness, wilderness, and death, themes that naturally aligned with the emerging werewolf legend. The belief that humans could transform into wolves was likely influenced by these real-world fears. Medieval Europe was a place where wolves roamed freely, particularly in the dense forests that stretched across the continent. These forests, which were poorly understood and seen as perilous places where evil could take root, became the natural habitat for werewolves in the imagination of the people. The wolf, with its cunning intelligence, its ability to strike swiftly and vanish into the night, became the perfect symbol for humanity's worst instincts. But wolves were also respected for their strength and their place in nature's hierarchy. This ambivalence, both fear and respect, helped shape the werewolf's image as something powerful and dangerous, but also deeply connected to the wild, untamable side of human nature. Werewolves and witchcraft, dark magic in the woods. As the werewolf legend developed, it became increasingly intertwined with the belief in witchcraft. Much like witches, werewolves were believed to wield dark, supernatural powers. In many cases, it was thought that witches could transform themselves or others into wolves through the use of potions, spells, or magical objects. These werewolves were not simply cursed individuals but practitioners of the dark arts, using their wolf forms to terrorize the innocent and further their own sinister goals. In the medieval mind, the werewolf was often seen as a servant of witches, carrying out their evil deeds in wolf form, while the witch remained in human guise. This link between witches and werewolves was further solidified during the witch hunts, when the lines between different forms of supernatural evil began to blur. Anyone accused of consorting with the devil, practicing witchcraft, or possessing unnatural powers could easily be labeled a werewolf. Potions and magical charms were often believed to be key components of werewolf transformations. In some legends, a person would don the skin of a wolf or drink a specially brewed potion to take on the form of the beast. In others, the transformation was involuntary, triggered by a curse or the phases of the moon. Regardless of the means, the transformation into a wolf was seen as something deeply unnatural, a violation of the natural order, and an act of dark magic. Fear and fascination. The medieval werewolf endures. By the time the Middle Ages drew to a close, the werewolf had become firmly entrenched in the European imagination as a creature of fear, superstition, and punishment. In the eyes of medieval Europeans, the werewolf was more than just a myth. It was a real, terrifying possibility, lurking at the edge of society, waiting to strike. The werewolf's transformation from human to beast reflected deeper fears of losing control, of giving in to the darker, wilder side of human nature. The medieval period laid the groundwork for the werewolf's continued evolution in folklore, literature, and popular culture. As Europe entered the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, the werewolf would take on new meanings and interpretations, but the fear of the beast within would remain. In the next chapter, we will explore the mechanics of the werewolf transformation, how humans were believed to become wolves, what triggered these changes, and what it meant to lose one's humanity under the light of the full moon. Chapter 4. The Transformation. Anatomy of a werewolf. Of all the elements of the werewolf legend, none is more iconic or more terrifying than the transformation itself. The shift from human to wolf, often depicted as a violent and painful metamorphosis, represents the heart of the werewolf myth, an eruption of primal power that tears through the frail veneer of humanity. This change, triggered by ancient curses, magic, or the pull of the full moon, captures the imagination and fear of cultures worldwide. But what happens during the transformation, and how does a man become a beast? In this chapter, we'll delve into the intricacies of the werewolf's transformation, exploring the folklore, physical traits, and triggers that define this monstrous change. Whether described as a sudden, agonizing process or a smooth shift of form, the werewolf's transformation stands as a potent symbol of human nature's untamed side. The sudden, painful shift, a violent metamorphosis. In many depictions of werewolf transformations, the process is brutal. Bones break and reform, muscles twist and contort, skin stretches, and fur sprouts from once human flesh. The agonizing transformation mirrors the violent change happening within the person, the symbolic tearing away of human identity and control. In folklore and film alike, the werewolf's shift is often portrayed as a slow, torturous process, forcing the person to endure every painful moment as they lose their humanity. This violent transformation is a metaphor for the loss of control when the wolf inside breaks free and shatters the structure of civilization. In many stories, the person undergoing the transformation is conscious of the change but powerless to stop it. As their body reshapes into that of a beast, their mind is overtaken by animal instincts, and the human they once were is submerged under a flood of wild, predatory thoughts. One of the most famous examples of this torturous shift can be found in the 1941 classic film, The Wolf Man, where the character Lawrence Talbot transforms in agonizing slow motion, with each muscle and bone visibly changing shape. This portrayal of the transformation as an unstoppable force, violent, painful, and inevitable solidified the image of the werewolf as a creature caught between human and beast. The full moon and its power. Perhaps the most iconic element of the werewolf transformation is its link to the full moon. This association, so deeply embedded in modern depictions of werewolves, stems from centuries of folklore, suggesting that the moon has a mysterious, uncontrollable influence over human behavior. The belief that madness and wildness are heightened during the full moon, often referred to as lunacy, is an ancient one, rooted in the idea that the moon affects not only the tides but also the human body and mind. In many werewolf myths, the full moon acts as the trigger for the transformation. When the moon rises in its fullest state, the curse is activated, and the person begins to shift into a wolf, regardless of their will. This theme plays on the idea that the natural world, represented by the moon, has a power over humanity that cannot be resisted. No matter how much the afflicted person fights, the full moon compels them to change, reminding us of our connection to nature and the forces that lie beyond our control. The full moon's association with werewolves is not universal, however. In some cultures, werewolves transform through magic, curses, or their own willpower. But the image of the full moon looming high in the sky, casting its silvery light on the night as a man writhes in agony, has become one of the most enduring symbols of the werewolf legend. Curses, magic, and inherited traits. Beyond the pull of the moon, werewolf transformations are often linked to curses, witchcraft, or inherited traits. In many cases, the transformation is not a choice but a fate imposed on an individual either by malevolent magic or as a result of ancestral sin. These transformations are typically involuntary, further reinforcing the werewolf's association with losing control. One of the most common elements in werewolf lore is the idea of a curse. Whether inherited from a cursed ancestor or bestowed upon someone by a sorcerer, the curse forces the person to transform against their will. In some stories, the curse is passed down through families, with each generation doomed to carry the burden of the wolf within. This idea adds a tragic dimension to the werewolf myth, suggesting that the transformation is not only a punishment for past sins, but a fate from which there is no escape. In other tales, the transformation is linked to magic. Witches or sorcerers are often portrayed as having the power to turn others into wolves, either as a form of punishment or as part of a dark pact. Some legends suggest that a person could transform by wearing a magical wolf skin or drinking a potion brewed with specific herbs. These magical transformations were thought to be temporary, with the person regaining their human form after a certain period, usually at dawn, when the night's hold over the world weakened. In contrast to the cursed or magical transformations, some legends describe werewolves who can change at will, controlling their transformation rather than being ruled by it. These werewolves are often seen as more dangerous, as they embrace the power of the wolf within and use it to their advantage. In such stories, the werewolf's transformation is not a curse but a tool, one that can be harnessed for strength, speed, and predatory skill. The physical traits of a werewolf. Once transformed, a werewolf is typically described as a creature of terrifying power and predatory prowess, larger and more muscular than a regular wolf. The werewolf is a hybrid of human and animal, often walking on two legs but retaining the head and fur of a wolf. Its eyes glow with unnatural intelligence, suggesting that the beast retains some awareness of its human self, though it is driven by the hunger and instincts of the wolf. In folklore, werewolves are said to possess incredible strength, speed, and heightened senses. Their sense of smell and hearing are far more acute than that of a human, allowing them to track prey over long distances. Some legends also grant werewolves near invulnerability, with the only known weakness being silver, a metal often associated with purity and protection against supernatural forces. The combination of human intelligence and animal strength makes the werewolf an especially dangerous predator. In many stories, the werewolf hunts not only animals but also humans, driven by an insatiable hunger that cannot be controlled. Once the transformation is complete, the person's humanity is eclipsed by the wolf's instincts, leaving them to act on primal urges until the morning returns, and they revert to their human form, often with no memory of what they've done. Regaining humanity after the transformation. After the transformation, when the sun rises or the curse lifts, the werewolf returns to human form, but not without consequences. The person is often left weakened and exhausted, with little memory of the events that occurred during their time as a wolf. In many cases, the return to humanity is filled with guilt, as the person is confronted with the damage they caused while under the influence of the transformation. This duality, the shift from human to beast and back again, adds to the tragic nature of the werewolf myth. The transformation is not just physical, it is a loss of control, a surrender to darker instincts that can never be fully forgotten. The werewolf is, at its core, a creature trapped between two worlds, the civilized world of humanity and the untamed wildness of the wolf. In the next chapter, we will explore how the werewolf legend spread beyond Europe, examining the shape-shifting traditions in Native American and indigenous lore and their own interpretations of the human-wolf connection. Chapter 5: Werewolves in Native American and Indigenous Lore. While the werewolf legend is most often associated with European folklore, tales of human-animal transformation stretch across cultures, continents, and centuries. Among Native American and indigenous communities, the idea of shape-shifting is deeply woven into spiritual beliefs and mythologies. But unlike the European werewolf, which is often portrayed as a cursed or tragic figure, shape-shifters in indigenous lore are complex entities, sometimes revered and sometimes feared. In many indigenous cultures, shape-shifting is not just a terrifying transformation, it's a sacred act tied to the natural world, the spirit realm, and the balance between human and animal. These stories carry a deep respect for nature and a belief in the interconnectedness of all living things, making the act of becoming an animal far more than a physical change. The wolf, in particular, holds a special place in many indigenous traditions, symbolizing strength, survival, and deep intuition. The skinwalker shape-shifter of the Southwest. One of the most feared and well-known shape-shifters in indigenous lore is the skinwalker of the Navajo people. Unlike the European werewolf, which is often portrayed as the result of an involuntary curse, the skinwalker is a deliberate and dark transformation, a person who chooses to embrace the form of an animal through the use of powerful, forbidden magic. These shape-shifters are usually associated with malevolent intentions, using their abilities to bring harm and chaos. In Navajo tradition, the skinwalker, or Ye-nailed Lushi, is a witch or sorcerer who has gained the ability to transform into an animal, most often a wolf or coyote, by wearing its skin. The skinwalker is not just feared for its physical transformation, but for its spiritual corruption. To become a skinwalker, it is said that one must commit an unthinkable act, often involving the murder of a close relative, severing the skinwalker from their humanity and tying them to dark, supernatural forces. Skinwalkers are not simply wolves in human clothing, they are believed to possess supernatural abilities beyond their physical transformation. According to legend, skinwalkers can run at incredible speeds, mimic the voices of loved ones to lure their prey, and even cause illness or death through dark magic. They are masters of deception and manipulation, using their knowledge of the spiritual world to control both humans and animals. The fear of skinwalkers is so strong in Navajo culture that even speaking of them is considered dangerous, as it is believed to invite their attention. In this way, the legend of the skinwalker serves as a cautionary tale about the consequences of using forbidden power and disrupting the natural order. The Wendigo, a beast born of hunger. In contrast to the skinwalker, the Wendigo of Algonquian legend is a creature born not from dark magic but from desperation. The Wendigo is often described as a gaunt, skeletal figure with the appearance of both man and beast, driven by an insatiable hunger for human flesh. Like the European werewolf, the Wendigo represents a loss of humanity, but its transformation is tied to extreme conditions: starvation, isolation, and madness. In the harsh winters of the northern forests, where the Algonquian people lived, survival was often a matter of life and death. The Wendigo myth reflects this struggle, symbolizing the dangers of greed, selfishness, and cannibalism. According to legend, a person could become a Wendigo if they resorted to eating human flesh during a time of famine. Once the transformation began, the person would lose their human soul, consumed by an unquenchable hunger that could never be satisfied. The Wendigo is often depicted as a towering, skeletal figure, its ribs protruding through its skin, and its eyes glowing with a malevolent hunger. Unlike the werewolf, which transforms under the influence of the moon or a curse, the Wendigo is a permanent transformation, a reflection of the monstrous consequences of succumbing to base instincts. The Wendigo serves as a warning about the dangers of excess, greed, and the fragile line between survival and savagery. Shape-shifting in other indigenous cultures. Beyond the skinwalker and the Wendigo, many indigenous cultures feature stories of shape-shifters who possess the ability to move between human and animal forms. In the Great Plains, some tribes tell of warriors who could transform into wolves or bears to gain strength and protection in battle, similar to the Norse Alfednar. These warriors were not cursed, but chosen, blessed by the spirits of animals to protect their people and lands. In the Pacific Northwest, a wolf is often seen as a guardian spirit, and legends tell of shamans who could call upon the wolf's strength by shifting into its form. In these cultures, the wolf is not a symbol of fear, but one of respect. Shape-shifting into a wolf is seen as a sacred act, a way of tapping into the primal forces of nature and forging a deeper connection with the world around them. Similarly, in many South American indigenous traditions, shape-shifting is tied to shamanic practices and spiritual journeys. Shamans were believed to be able to take on the forms of animals to communicate with the spirit world, gather knowledge, or heal the sick. In these cultures, the transformation into an animal was a way of accessing ancient wisdom and crossing the boundaries between the physical and spiritual realms. The balance of power wolves is both friend and foe. What sets the indigenous shape-shifting legends apart from European werewolf myths is the nuanced view of transformation. While European werewolves are often portrayed as tragic figures cursed to lose their humanity, indigenous shape-shifters reflect a more complex relationship with the natural world. For many indigenous cultures, the act of becoming a wolf for any animal is not inherently evil. It can be an act of balance, strength, and survival. Wolves, in particular, are seen as both friend and foe. In some stories, wolves are protectors, guiding lost travelers through the forest or providing spiritual guidance to those in need. In others, wolves are dangerous predators, testing the boundaries of human courage and respect for nature. This duality reflects a broader indigenous worldview in which animals are not simply prey or monsters, but part of a delicate balance between humans and the natural world. In many ways, the wolf represents the wild side of human nature, the instincts we suppress in order to live in society, but which we cannot fully escape. Shape-shifting into a wolf, then, becomes a way of acknowledging and embracing that wildness, even as it remains something to be respected and feared. Shape-shifters as protectors and guardians. While European werewolves are often portrayed as violent and out of control, many indigenous shape-shifters are seen as protectors figures who can move between worlds to safeguard their communities. These shape-shifters, often shamans or warriors, use their animal forms not to terrorize but to maintain harmony between the human and natural realms. In some stories, the wolf shifters are spiritual guides, leading their people through difficult times or serving as intermediaries between the living and the spirit world. The ability to transform is viewed as a gift, a connection to ancient wisdom that helps the shifter understand both the human and animal worlds more deeply. In this way, the indigenous concept of shape-shifting is often more spiritual than the European werewolf myth. It reflects a worldview where humans are not separate from nature but a part of it, and where the transformation into an animal is not a curse, but a way of maintaining balance and harmony. A different kind of shape-shifter. The stories of the skinwalker, the Wendigo, and other indigenous shape-shifters reveal a fascinating contrast to the European werewolf myth. While both sets of legends deal with the transformation from human to beast, the cultural contexts are vastly different. For indigenous peoples, the act of shape-shifting often carries deep spiritual significance, rooted in the relationship between humans, animals, and the natural world. In these stories, the transformation is not always something to be feared, it is something to be understood, respected, and in some cases revered. As we continue our exploration of werewolves, it is important to remember that the act of becoming a wolf or wolf-like creature is a theme that transcends cultures and continents. Whether viewed as a curse, a spiritual journey, or a test of human nature, the shapeshifter remains a powerful figure, embodying our deepest fears, desires, and connection to the natural world. In the next chapter, we will delve deeper into the role of curses, witchcraft, and magic in shaping the werewolf myth, examining how the transformation from man to wolf became synonymous with dark forces and supernatural power. Chapter 6: Curses, Witchcraft, and Magic. The dark forces behind the werewolf. For centuries, werewolves have been shrouded in mystery and fear, their transformations often linked to forces beyond human control. At the heart of many werewolf legends lies the belief that these creatures are not simply victims of biology or the natural world, but of dark, supernatural forces, curses, witchcraft, and black magic. The idea that someone could be turned into a wolf through the manipulation of powerful, malevolent magic transformed the werewolf from a mere predator into a figure of terror, something that could strike anywhere, at any time, through the hidden hand of evil. In this chapter, we will explore how curses, sorcery, and dark magic have played a key role in shaping the werewolf myth. We'll examine the origins of these beliefs, the rituals and talismans associated with werewolves, and how these dark forces turn ordinary men and women into creatures of the night. The curse of the werewolf, a fate worse than death. One of the most common elements of werewolf lore is the idea of the curse, an unbreakable fate imposed upon a person, transforming them into a beast against their will. In many legends, this curse is a punishment, often for a grievous sin or betrayal. Whether placed by a vengeful witch, a jealous rival, or even as divine retribution, the curse strips away a person's humanity and forces them into the shape of a wolf. Unlike the magical transformations that some might seek voluntarily, the curse of the werewolf is a terrible burden, one that the afflicted must bear for life. Cursed werewolves often transform involuntarily, sometimes triggered by the full moon or other supernatural forces. In many stories, the cursed individual has no memory of their actions while in wolf form, leading to tragic consequences when they awaken to find they have harmed loved ones or caused great destruction. This loss of control is central to the fear of the werewolf curse. It is not just the transformation that is horrifying, but the idea that a person can become a monster and have no power to stop it. One of the most enduring examples of the cursed werewolf comes from the medieval French legend of the loup-garou. According to this legend, those who committed grave sins or broke religious oaths could be cursed to become werewolves, doomed to wander the forests at night in search of prey. The curse could be passed from person to person through a bite or scratch, much like a disease, ensuring that the curse would spread like wildfire, consuming all who crossed the werewolf's path. Witchcraft and werewolves, the dark art of transformation. As the fear of witchcraft spread through Europe during the Middle Ages, it became increasingly common to associate werewolves with witches and sorcery. Just as witches were believed to wield dark magic to manipulate the natural world, so too were werewolves thought to be the result of occult rituals and sinister spells. In many cases, witches were believed to possess the power to transform themselves or others into wolves. In these stories, the werewolf is not merely the victim of a curse, but a willing participant in dark magic. Often as part of a pact with the devil, witches were thought to be able to summon the spirit of a wolf and use it to carry out their bidding, turning men into beasts to terrorize villages and spread fear. In some legends, witches could take on the form of a wolf at will, shifting back and forth between human and animal as they pleased. This connection between werewolves and witches reached its height during the witch trials of the 16th and 17th centuries, particularly in France and Germany. People accused of being witches were often also accused of being werewolves, with the two supernatural threats intertwined in the minds of the public. Tortured confessions from accused witches frequently included claims of shape-shifting, with women claiming they had turned into wolves to feast on livestock or even attack humans. These confessions, coerced under extreme duress, fueled the hysteria surrounding both witches and werewolves, leading to countless executions. One infamous case occurred in 1598, during the height of the witch trials in France. A man named Jacques Roulet was accused of being a werewolf after he was found near the mutilated body of a young boy. Under torture, Roulet confessed to being a werewolf, claiming that he and his family used a magical ointment to transform into wolves and hunt humans. Though he was initially sentenced to death, Roulet's conviction was overturned when a more skeptical judge questioned the validity of his confession, suggesting that the werewolf hysteria had clouded the case. Magical talismans and potions, the tools of transformation. Beyond curses and witchcraft, many werewolf legends involve the use of magical objects or potions to trigger the transformation. In some cases, these tools are willingly used by individuals seeking the power of a wolf, while in others, they are bestowed by witches or sorcerers to curse their victims. These talismans often appear in the form of wolf skins, enchanted belts, or specially prepared potions, all designed to strip a person of their humanity and grant them the physical traits of a wolf. One of the most well-known examples of magical talismans in werewolf lore comes from medieval Scandinavian and Germanic legends, where men were said to transform into wolves by donning enchanted wolf skins. According to these stories, a person could place a wolf's pelt over their body and instantly transform into a wolf, gaining the animal's strength, speed, and ferocity. These transformations were often temporary, lasting only as long as the person wore the skin, but they were dangerous nonetheless, as the human mind could easily become overwhelmed by the wolf's instincts. In other tales, the transformation was triggered by potions or salves made from magical herbs. Witches or alchemists were said to brew these potions for those seeking power or vengeance, allowing them to transform into wolves for a single night or until they completed their task. However, as with most dark magic, there was always a cost. Those who used these potions risked becoming trapped in their wolf form, unable to return to their human bodies, or losing their humanity entirely, consumed by the wildness of the beast within. The role of the devil, werewolves as agents of darkness. In many Christian interpretations of werewolf legends, the transformation into a wolf was not just the result of curses or magic, but a direct pact with the devil. During the height of witchcraft hysteria, werewolves were seen as agents of Satan, spreading fear and chaos as part of a broader campaign to corrupt and destroy humanity. This connection between werewolves and the devil reinforced the idea that these creatures were not simply wild animals but manifestations of pure evil. The Inquisition, particularly in France and Germany, frequently linked werewolves to satanic rituals, accusing those who transformed into wolves of participating in black masses and other demonic rites. In many cases, accused werewolves were tortured until they confessed to making pacts with the devil, offering their souls in exchange for the power to shapeshift. These confessions, though obtained through coercion, only served to heighten the public's fear of werewolves as supernatural agents of destruction. In some legends, the werewolf's bite was seen as a form of satanic contagion, spreading the curse of lycanthropy like a plague. Those bitten by a werewolf were believed to be marked by the devil, doomed to transform into wolves themselves and continue the cycle of violence. This idea of the werewolf as both predator and victim, a creature cursed to spread its own curse, added a layer of tragedy to the legend, making the werewolf a symbol of the inescapable nature of evil. Breaking the curse. Can a werewolf be saved? Despite the terrifying nature of the werewolf curse, many legends offer hope that the curse can be broken, though the methods for doing so vary. In some stories, the curse can only be lifted through religious intervention, with a priest or holy figure performing an exorcism or other ritual to cleanse the afflicted person of their lycanthropy. In others, the curse can be undone if the werewolf is shown compassion or love, breaking the spell through an act of pure humanity. In some cases, the curse can only be broken through the death of the werewolf. Silver, a metal traditionally associated with purity and protection, is often said to be the only weapon capable of killing a werewolf. This idea, popularized in 19th and 20th century literature and film, has become one of the most enduring aspects of the werewolf myth. Silver bullets, silver swords, or even silver-tipped arrows are seen as the ultimate defense against the werewolf's ferocity, offering a final solution to the terror it spreads. A dark legacy of power and fear. The connection between werewolves, curses, and magic has left a lasting impact on the myth. Turning these creatures into more than just predators, they are symbols of the dangers of unchecked power, dark magic, and the loss of humanity. Whether cursed by fate, transformed by witches, or tempted by the devil, the werewolf represents the primal fear of losing control, of becoming something less than human. In the next chapter, we will explore how the legend of the werewolf evolved in modern times, taking a look at its place in popular culture, literature, and media, and how this ancient myth continues to captivate audiences in new ways. Chapter 7. Werewolves in Pop Culture. Werewolves may have their roots in ancient myth and folklore, but it is through the lens of modern pop culture that they have truly taken on new life. From the eerie forests of medieval Europe to the bright lights of Hollywood, the werewolf has evolved into a cultural icon at once a symbol of primal fear and a figure of fascination. In literature, film, and television, werewolves have captured the imaginations of millions, becoming one of the most enduring monsters in the pantheon of horror. But what is it about the werewolf that makes it such a compelling figure in popular culture? Is it the terrifying transformation from man to beast, or the metaphorical exploration of the human struggle between control and chaos? Whatever the reason, the werewolf has become a shape-shifter not only in legend but in meaning, evolving with each new story to reflect the fears and desires of its audience. In this chapter, we'll explore how the werewolf has been reimagined in popular culture from the early days of cinema to its current role in modern media, and why this iconic creature continues to resonate with us. The silver screen. From monster to tragic hero. Werewolves made their grand entrance into mainstream pop culture with the advent of early cinema, and few films were as influential in shaping the werewolf myth as The Wolf Man, 1941. Starring Lon Chaney Jr. as the doomed protagonist Lawrence Talbot, The Wolf Man established many of the conventions that would come to define werewolf lore in Hollywood. The full moon as a trigger for transformation, the werewolf's tragic struggle with its monstrous nature, and the idea that silver is the only weapon capable of killing the beast. What set the Wolf Man apart was its focus on the human aspect of the werewolf. Talbot is not a villain, but a sympathetic character cursed and unable to control the violence that erupts when he transforms. This theme of the werewolf as a tragic figure caught between two worlds, human and beast, became central to the werewolf narrative in film. Audiences were drawn to the horror not just of the werewolf's violence, but of the human cost of losing control. The transformation scenes, though tame by today's standards, were groundbreaking at the time and helped establish the werewolf's iconic metamorphosis as a key moment in horror cinema. The visual spectacle of watching a man painfully shift into a creature of the night cemented the werewolf's place as one of the most feared monsters of the silver screen. As film technology advanced, so too did depictions of werewolves. In the 1980s, the werewolf made a bloody comeback with films like An American Werewolf in London, 1981, and The Howling, 1981, both of which pushed the boundaries of special effects and brought the terrifying transformation to life in graphic detail. John Landis's An American Werewolf in London featured one of the most famous transformation scenes in cinema history, as protagonist David Kessler's body painfully contorts and reshapes into a snarling wolf under the influence of the full moon. The film's blend of horror and dark humor made it an instant classic and reaffirmed the werewolf's place in the horror genre. Television, a new era of werewolf stories. In the realm of television, werewolves have become a staple of supernatural dramas and fantasy series. Shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, True Blood, and The Vampire Diaries have all featured werewolves as key characters, often in tandem with other supernatural creatures like vampires and witches. In these stories, the werewolf is frequently portrayed as both a fierce protector and a dangerous force, caught between loyalty to their pack and the violent instincts that accompany their transformation. One of the most successful modern adaptations of the werewolf myth on television is MTV's Teen Wolf, 2011 to 2017, which reimagined the 1985 comedy film of the same name as a darker, more action-oriented drama. In this series, protagonist Scott McCall must navigate the challenges of high school while grappling with the responsibilities and dangers of being a newly turned werewolf. Teen Wolf not only explored the physical transformation, but also the emotional toll of balancing human relationships with the wild, unpredictable nature of the wolf within. The show's success demonstrated that werewolves could appeal to younger audiences, blending elements of horror, fantasy, and coming-of-age storytelling. Literature. The werewolf is metaphor. Werewolves have also left their mark on the world of literature, with authors using the creature as a metaphor for everything from personal transformation to social alienation. In many modern novels, the werewolf is no longer just a monster, it is a symbol of the inner turmoil that comes with navigating identity, power, and change. J.K. Rowling introduced a memorable werewolf character in her Harry Potter series, Remus Lupin, a kind and intelligent wizard who suffers from lycanthropy. Lupin's struggle with his condition is both literal and symbolic, reflecting themes of stigma, discrimination, and self-control. He is a tragic figure, burdened by his transformation and the fear of harming those he loves. Through Lupin, Rowling redefines the werewolf as a sympathetic, even heroic figure, whose curse is not an inherent evil, but a condition that must be managed. Similarly, Stephen E. Meyer's Twilight series reimagines werewolves as part of a larger supernatural world, with her wolf-shifting Quileo tribe serving as protectors rather than predators. These werewolves are linked to a long-standing cultural tradition and represent a force for good, fighting against vampires to protect their community. In Twilight, the werewolf becomes part of a love triangle, with Jacob Black, the werewolf, embodying a warm, earthy counterpart to the cold, distant vampire Edward Cullen. This reworking of the werewolf myth into a romantic narrative showed the creature's adaptability in modern storytelling. In other contemporary novels, such as Glenn Duncan's The Last Werewolf, the werewolf becomes a vessel for existential exploration. Duncan's protagonist, Jake, is the last surviving werewolf, cursed with immortality and weighed down by the burden of endless life and transformation. The novel presents a gritty, philosophical take on the werewolf myth, using it as a lens to explore what it means to be human, or, more accurately, what it means to lose one's humanity. Werewolves in video games and comics. Werewolves have also made their way into video games and comics, where their monstrous transformations and predatory instincts make them perfect characters for action-packed storytelling. In video games like The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim, and Bloodborne, players can take on the role of a werewolf, harnessing the creature's immense strength and agility to defeat enemies and explore dark, dangerous worlds. These games often allow players to experience the thrill of the werewolf's power while grappling with the moral and physical consequences of the transformation. In the world of comics, werewolves have appeared in both superhero and horror genres. Marvel Comics introduced Werewolf by Night, a character who battles both human and supernatural enemies, while struggling with his own cursed existence. The series blends traditional werewolf horror with superhero elements, showing the werewolf as both a hero and a tragic figure. Werewolves have also appeared in darker, more mature comic series like Fables, where shapeshifters play a crucial role in the battle between mythical creatures and the modern world. The enduring appeal of the werewolf. What is it about werewolves that continues to captivate audiences in so many forms of media? Part of the answer lies in the werewolf's ability to represent our inner conflicts. The transformation from human to beast reflects our struggle between control and chaos, civilization and nature, order and instinct. The werewolf is a creature of duality, both a victim and a predator, both human and animal. In the werewolf, we see our fears of losing control, of becoming something we don't recognize, of being overwhelmed by emotions or desires that we can't contain. But we also see power raw, untamed strength that allows the werewolf to rise above the limits of humanity. This duality is what makes the werewolf so compelling in pop culture. It is both a monster to fear and a symbol of empowerment. As pop culture continues to evolve, so too will the werewolf. It is a creature that can be reimagined endlessly, reflecting the changing fears and desires of society. Whether portrayed as a tragic hero, a fearsome predator, or a complex figure of transformation, the werewolf will continue to stalk the pages of books, the screens of theaters, and the imaginations of audiences worldwide. In the next chapter, we will explore modern theories about werewolves, examining how the legend persists in the realms of cryptozoology, paranormal investigations, and psychological studies. Chapter 8: Modern Theories, From Cryptozoology to Psychology. Even in our modern world, where science and technology have illuminated so many of nature's mysteries, the legend of the werewolf persists. But in the 21st century, belief in these shape-shifting creatures is no longer confined to medieval superstition. Today, a wide range of theories, some scientific, others paranormal, and still others psychological, seek to explain why the werewolf myth endures and whether it might have roots in real-world phenomena. While mainstream science largely dismisses the idea of humans transforming into wolves, the werewolf legend has found a home in the fringes of research, from cryptozoology to paranormal investigations. At the same time, psychology offers its own insights, suggesting that the werewolf could be a metaphor for deeply human fears and desires. In this chapter, we will explore these modern theories, from the hunt for living wolf men to the study of psychological conditions that mimic the symptoms of lycanthropy. The cryptozoologists search for werewolves. In the field of cryptozoology, the study of creatures whose existence has yet to be confirmed by science, the werewolf remains an intriguing figure. Though many cryptozoologists focus on hunting Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, and other mysterious creatures, reports of upright, wolf-like beings continue to surface, leading some researchers to wonder if there could be a real, undiscovered species that inspired the werewolf legend. One of the most famous modern-day werewolf sightings comes from the United States, where witnesses have reported encounters with a creature known as the Dogman. Descriptions of the Dogman are eerily similar to traditional werewolves, a bipedal, wolf-like creature standing between 6 and 8 feet tall, with the body of a man but the head and fur of a wolf. Sightings have been particularly concentrated in Michigan, where legends of the Dogman date back to the late 19th century. In 1987, the legend gained widespread attention after the release of a song called The Legend, which detailed encounters with the Dogman. Since then, sightings have continued, with eyewitnesses reporting terrifying encounters with a creature that moves with both human-like intelligence and animalistic ferocity. Cryptozoologists investigating these sightings often compare the Dogman to the werewolves of European folklore, speculating that the creature could be a biological species rather than a supernatural entity. But what could these creatures be? Some cryptozoologists suggest that the Dogman and other werewolf-like beings could be a surviving population of hominid wolves, a previously undiscovered species of upright, intelligent predators that evolved separately from known wolves and humans. Others speculate that they could be a rare, regional species of Bigfoot with different physical traits but similar origins. Though no concrete evidence has been found to support these theories, cryptozoologists continue to collect eyewitness reports, searching for the elusive proof that could bring these creatures out of myth and into reality. Werewolves in the paranormal world, interdimensional beings. For those who believe in the supernatural, the werewolf is more than just a cryptid. It is a being that exists outside the laws of nature. Paranormal researchers, particularly those involved in investigating UFOs and other unexplained phenomena, have their own theories about werewolves, suggesting that these creatures may be interdimensional beings capable of moving between worlds. This theory posits that werewolves and other strange creatures like Dogman and Bigfoot are not native to our reality, but can cross into our world from other dimensions. These beings, according to the theory, have the ability to phase in and out of existence, which is why they leave so little physical evidence behind. This idea of interdimensional travel offers an explanation for why sightings of werewolves and similar creatures are often fleeting and inconsistent, with the creatures seemingly vanishing without a trace. Some paranormal researchers link werewolf sightings to UFO activity, suggesting that these creatures may even be extraterrestrial in origin. Theories range from werewolves being genetic experiments by advanced alien species to being entities capable of manipulating time and space. Though these ideas might sound far-fetched, they reflect humanity's enduring need to explain the unexplainable, and the werewolf, with its supernatural transformation, fits well within this framework. In the realm of paranormal investigation, werewolves are also tied to shape-shifting entities that appear in various cultures, such as the skinwalkers of Navajo lore or the yokai of Japanese mythology. These creatures are thought to blur the boundaries between human and animal, spirit and flesh, suggesting that the werewolf might not be just a physical being but a manifestation of a deeper, spiritual transformation. Psychological explanations: the mind of the werewolf. While cryptozoologists and paranormal researchers search for the werewolf in the wild, psychologists and medical experts look inward at the human mind. For them, the werewolf legend may have its roots not in physical transformation, but in psychological disorders and societal fears. One of the most famous psychological explanations for the werewolf myth is clinical lycanthropy, a rare psychiatric condition in which a person believes they have transformed or are in the process of transforming into an animal, most often a wolf. Those suffering from clinical lycanthropy report feeling as though their body is changing, experiencing sensations such as fur growing on their skin or their teeth sharpening into fangs. In extreme cases, individuals may even behave like animals, growling, howling, and moving on all fours. Clinical lycanthropy is considered a form of delusion and is often linked to underlying mental health issues such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or severe depression. The condition is rare, with only a few documented cases throughout history, but it offers a compelling explanation for some of the historical accounts of people claiming to be werewolves. In the Middle Ages, individuals suffering from clinical lycanthropy may have been viewed as cursed or possessed, their delusions fueling the fear that they had become actual monsters. Psychologists also view the werewolf as a powerful metaphor for the human struggle with inner conflict, control, and aggression. The transformation from human to wolf can be seen as a symbolic representation of the battle between civilization and primal instinct, a theme that resonates across cultures and time periods. In this sense, the werewolf myth is not just about becoming an animal. It is about the fear of losing control, of surrendering to darker, more violent impulses. The biological angle: misidentifications and medical conditions. Some researchers believe that historical werewolf sightings may have been the result of misidentifications or rare medical conditions. One of the most widely cited explanations is hypertrichosis, a genetic disorder that causes excessive hair growth all over the body. Individuals with hypertrichosis, sometimes referred to as werewolf syndrome, can have thick, dark hair covering their faces and bodies, giving them a wolf-like appearance. In earlier centuries, before the condition was understood, those with hypertrichosis might have been viewed as part human, part beast, fueling the belief in werewolves. Another potential explanation for the werewolf myth comes from rabies, a viral disease that affects the nervous system and can cause aggressive behavior, hypersensitivity to light, and fear of water, all symptoms that have been associated with werewolf transformations. Infected individuals may have appeared rabid or animalistic, leading to the belief that they had been transformed into wolves or other wild creatures. These biological explanations suggest that the werewolf legend could be a product of misunderstood medical conditions, misinterpreted by cultures that lack the scientific knowledge to explain such phenomena. While these theories do not account for the supernatural elements of the myth, they offer a rational perspective on how stories of wolfmen may have arisen in the first place. Why the werewolf enters? So why does the werewolf legend persist, even in an age of science and reason? Perhaps it is because the werewolf taps into something universal: a fear of losing control, of becoming something monstrous and wild. In many ways, the werewolf represents our deepest anxieties about power, violence, and the fragile boundary between civilization and savagery. The transformation from man to beast reflects our own inner struggles, our own battles with instincts that lie just beneath the surface. Whether we view the werewolf as a cryptid, a paranormal entity, a psychological metaphor, or a medical mystery, the myth endures because it speaks to the human experience. The werewolf is not just a creature of the night. It is a symbol of the primal forces we all carry within us, forces that we strive to control but can never fully escape. As modern theories continue to evolve, the werewolf remains as enigmatic as ever, a creature that moves between worlds, between science and myth, between human and animal. And as long as we continue to search for answers, the werewolf will continue to haunt our imaginations, a reminder that some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved. Chapter 9. How to Protect Against Werewolves. The werewolf, with its terrifying power and uncontrollable rage, has haunted human imaginations for centuries. But just as the myth of the werewolf grew, so too did the lore surrounding how to defend oneself against this fearsome creature. Across cultures, people have developed various methods of protection, using everything from sacred objects and magical herbs to the legendary silver bullet. These protective measures offer insight into how different societies view the threat of the werewolf, not merely as a physical beast, but as a creature of supernatural origin, one that required more than brute force to defeat. In this chapter, we will explore the many ways people believed they could ward off or kill a werewolf, drawing from centuries of folklore, religious beliefs, and even modern adaptations of the myth. The power of silver, a weapon of purity. Perhaps the most famous method of defending against a werewolf is the use of silver, specifically in the form of bullets. Silver, a metal long associated with purity and the divine, is thought to have special properties that make it effective against supernatural creatures, including werewolves. The idea of using silver as a weapon against werewolves gained widespread popularity in the 19th and 20th centuries, particularly through literature and film, but its roots stretch further back in folklore. The belief in silver's protective power stems from its connection to the moon and its association with light and purity. In many cultures, silver was used in religious ceremonies and thought to repel evil spirits. When applied to the werewolf myth, silver became the ultimate defense, an incorruptible metal capable of penetrating the beast's supernatural defenses. In the modern werewolf mythos, silver bullets are seen as the only sure way to kill a werewolf. This idea was popularized by the 1941 film The Wolf Man, in which the protagonist learns that even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolfbane blooms and the autumn moon is bright. But it is only a silver bullet that can truly end the werewolf's reign of terror. Since then, the silver bullet has become a staple of werewolf lore, appearing in countless films, books, and television shows as the go-to method for slaying the beast. Beyond bullets, silver objects such as knives, swords, and even chains have been used in various stories to ward off or trap werewolves. The metal's connection to the divine and its reputation for purity make it a powerful tool in combating not only werewolves but other creatures of darkness, such as vampires and demons. In this way, silver is more than just a physical weapon. It is a symbol of humanity's fight against the corrupting forces of the supernatural. Religious symbols, faith as a shield. In many werewolf legends, religion plays a key role in protecting people from the beast. Much like with vampires, religious symbols such as crosses, holy water, and blessed objects are believed to repel werewolves, suggesting that the creature's curse is not only physical but spiritual in nature. The werewolf, as a symbol of moral corruption and sin, is vulnerable to the divine power of religious artifacts. In medieval Europe, where the church had immense influence over daily life, the werewolf was often seen as a manifestation of sin, a punishment for moral failings or involvement in witchcraft. As a result, religious rituals and objects were believed to offer protection. Carrying a crucifix or sprinkling holy water around one's home was thought to create a barrier that a werewolf could not cross, while prayers to saints or blessings from a priest could offer additional protection. In some stories, a werewolf could be cured or freed from its curse through religious intervention. A priest might perform an exorcism or blessing to rid the afflicted person of their lycanthropy, restoring their humanity. This suggests that, for many believers, the werewolf's transformation was not only a physical curse, but a spiritual one, an affliction that could only be healed through divine grace. In other versions of the myth, werewolves are depicted as enemies of God, unable to cross sacred ground such as churches or cemeteries. This connection between werewolves and religious symbolism reinforces the idea that the beast is more than just an animal. It is a representation of humanity's fall from grace, a creature bound by both physical and moral laws. Herbs and plants, nature's protection. In addition to silver and religious symbols, certain herbs and plants have long been thought to offer protection against werewolves. These natural remedies were believed to repel the creatures, either by masking a person's scent or creating a barrier that the werewolf could not cross. The most famous of these protective plants is wolfsbane, also known as aconite or monkshood, a highly toxic plant that appears frequently in werewolf lore. Wolfsbane's connection to werewolves is twofold. It is both a protective herb and, in some stories, a key ingredient in the magical potions used to transform into a wolf. In medieval and early modern Europe, wolfsbane was believed to repel werewolves, and people would hang sprigs of the plant around their homes or carry it with them when traveling through the woods at night. Its strong odor was thought to ward off the creature, much like garlic was believed to repel vampires. In addition to wolfsbane, other herbs like rue, vervain, and hawthorn were also used to protect against werewolves and other supernatural threats. These herbs, often associated with healing and protection, were believed to have magical properties that could shield individuals from harm. In some cases, they were used to create protective salves or potions, which when applied to the skin or consumed would offer temporary protection from the werewolf's curse. These herbal remedies reflect a deep connection between the natural world and the supernatural in folklore. For centuries, people believed that nature itself offered protection against the darker forces of the world, using plants and herbs as a way to create boundaries between themselves and the unknown. Magical talismans and amulets. In addition to religious symbols and herbs, many cultures believed in the power of magical talismans and amulets to protect against werewolves. These objects, often inscribed with symbols or blessed by a spiritual leader, were thought to carry protective magic that could ward off the creature. In some cases, these talismans were believed to prevent the transformation itself, offering hope to those cursed with lycanthropy. For example, in parts of Eastern Europe, people would wear wolf tooth amulets as a form of protection, believing that the tooth of a wolf would protect them from being attacked or turned into a werewolf. In other traditions, amulets made from silver, iron, or blessed wood were used to repel werewolves, much like they were used against other supernatural creatures. Some talismans were even thought to have the power to reverse the transformation, restoring the afflicted person's humanity. These objects were often rare and difficult to obtain, and their power was tied to specific rituals or ceremonies. In this way, talismans offered a glimmer of hope in a world where the werewolf's curse was often seen as inescapable. Folk remedies and rituals. Beyond silver, religion, and plants, various folk remedies and rituals have been used to protect against werewolves throughout history. In some cultures, people would mark their doors with protective symbols or draw circles of salt around their homes to keep werewolves and other supernatural creatures at bay. These practices, often passed down through generations, reflect the deep-rooted fear of the werewolf and the desire to maintain control over a world filled with unseen dangers. In other cases, people believed that the howl of a wolf could be a warning of an impending werewolf attack, and certain rituals were performed to prevent the creature from entering a village. These rituals, often involving fire, water, or the recitation of specific prayers, were designed to protect the community as a whole, reinforcing the idea that the werewolf posed a threat not only to individuals but to society itself. The symbolism of protection, control over the unknown. The various methods of protecting against werewolves, from silver to religious symbols to herbal remedies, all share a common theme: the desire to control the uncontrollable. The werewolf, as a creature of chaos, represents the fear of losing control over oneself, over nature, and over the supernatural forces that lie just beyond the edge of human understanding. In seeking protection from werewolves, people sought to create boundaries between the known and the unknown, the safe and the dangerous, the human and the beast. These protective measures, whether physical or spiritual, reflect the deep-rooted need for order in a world where the boundaries of reality are constantly shifting. As the werewolf legend continues to evolve, so too do the ways in which we imagine defending ourselves against the creature. From ancient talismans to modern silver bullets, the desire to protect against the werewolf remains a powerful symbol of humanity's ongoing struggle to master the forces of the natural and supernatural worlds. In the next and final chapter, we will explore the legacy of the werewolf, reflecting on why this myth endures and what it continues to reveal about human nature. Chapter 10: The Legacy and Enduring Mystery of Werewolves. The werewolf has stalked the edges of human imagination for centuries, a creature both feared and revered, whose duality reflects the deepest aspects of human nature. From ancient myths and medieval superstitions to modern cinema and literature, the werewolf has evolved but never faded. Its story continues to be told and retold, each generation finding new meaning in the creature's struggle between humanity and beast, control and chaos. But why does the werewolf myth endure? What is it about this figure that still resonates so strongly in a world where science and reason rule? The answer may lie in the werewolf's ability to reflect the conflicts that have always existed within us, the push and pull between our civilized selves and our more primal instincts, the desire for power and the fear of losing control, the eternal battle between good and evil. In this final chapter, we'll reflect on the legacy of the werewolf, examining why this myth has persisted for so long and what it continues to reveal about the human experience. The werewolf is a symbol of human nature. At its core, the werewolf is not just a monster, it is a symbol. It represents the wildness that exists in all of us, the part of ourselves that we work so hard to suppress, but that never fully disappears. The transformation from man to beast is, in many ways, a metaphor for the struggle between order and chaos that defines human existence. We are creatures of reason and civilization, but beneath the surface lies something more instinctual, something untamed. In the werewolf, we see our fear of losing control. The beast that emerges under the light of the full moon is the embodiment of those darker impulses we try to hide: rage, desire, and violence. In many werewolf stories, the transformation is not voluntary. The person becomes a wolf against their will, symbolizing the loss of control over one's own mind and body. This fear of becoming something we can't control, something we don't recognize, is one of the reasons the werewolf continues to fascinate us. But the werewolf is also a symbol of power. In many stories, the transformation into a wolf grants the person extraordinary strength, speed, and heightened senses. The wolf is a creature of the wild, free from the constraints of society. In this way, the werewolf represents not only a loss of control, but also a release, of breaking free from the rules and expectations that govern human life. For some, the werewolf's transformation is not a curse, but a liberation, a chance to embrace the wildness within. The tragic hero werewolves and the human condition. As the werewolf myth has evolved, particularly in modern literature and film, the creature has often been portrayed as a tragic figure, caught between two worlds. Unlike other monsters, such as vampires or zombies, the werewolf retains its humanity, even if only in fleeting moments. This makes the werewolf more relatable, more sympathetic. The creature is not purely evil, but a victim of circumstance, cursed to lose control and become something it never wanted to be. This portrayal of the werewolf as a tragic hero speaks to the human condition, the struggle to balance the dual forces within us. In many stories, the werewolf is torn between its human self, with its relationships, emotions, and moral compass, and its animal self, driven by instinct and hunger. This conflict mirrors the internal battles we all face between reason and emotion, desire and restraint, duty and freedom. The tragedy of the werewolf is that, no matter how hard the person fights, the transformation is inevitable. This inevitability speaks to the fear that some parts of ourselves are beyond control, that no matter how much we strive to be good, to be rational, there will always be moments when the beast within takes over. In this sense, the werewolf story is not just a horror story, it is a reflection of the human struggle with identity, morality, and the forces that shape our lives. The werewolf in popular culture, a monster for all ages. One of the reasons the werewolf myth has persisted for so long is its ability to adapt to different cultures, time periods, and storytelling mediums. From medieval Europe to modern-day Hollywood, the werewolf has evolved, taking on new meanings while retaining its core symbolism. In each era, the werewolf has been reimagined to reflect the fears, desires, and concerns of the time. In the early days of cinema, the werewolf was often portrayed as a mindless monster, driven by violence and bloodlust. But as our understanding of psychology and human nature grew, so too did the complexity of the werewolf character. Modern films and books often depict the werewolf as a figure of empathy, a creature struggling to reconcile its two selves. In this way, the werewolf has become a symbol of internal conflict, a metaphor for the struggles we face as individuals. The werewolf's adaptability is also evident in its role across different genres. In horror, the werewolf represents pure terror, a creature that embodies the uncontrollable forces of nature. In fantasy, the werewolf is often a symbol of transformation and power, a creature with a foot in both the human and animal worlds. And in romance, the werewolf's struggle for control can be a metaphor for emotional vulnerability, representing the battle between love and fear. The werewolf's ability to shift between genres and themes ensures that it remains relevant in popular culture, continuing to evolve as a symbol of the human experience. The enduring mystery of the werewolf. Despite centuries of storytelling, the werewolf remains a mystery. Its origins are murky, its nature elusive, and its meaning ever-changing. In a world where so many myths have been explained or debunked, the werewolf persists, a creature of shadow and superstition that defies easy understanding. Part of the werewolf's enduring appeal lies in its ambiguity. Is it a man or a beast? A curse or a gift? A force of nature or a creature of the supernatural? The werewolf's ability to exist in this liminal space between human and animal, between good and evil, makes it a compelling figure, one that can never be fully explained or contained. In a sense, the werewolf represents the unknown forces that still exist in the world, the mysteries that science has not yet unraveled. While we may no longer believe in literal shape-shifters, the idea of transformation, of the hidden power within us, remains as intriguing as ever. The werewolf reminds us that, no matter how much we learn about the world, there will always be parts of ourselves and of nature that remain beyond our control. The werewolf's place in the modern imagination. As we move further into the 21st century, the werewolf shows no signs of fading from the cultural imagination. From blockbuster films to best-selling novels, the werewolf continues to captivate audiences, adapting to new narratives while holding on to its primal core. In many ways, the werewolf has become a mirror for our society's changing relationship with power, identity, and the natural world. In today's world, where technology often distances us from nature, the werewolf serves as a reminder of the wildness that still exists, both in the world and within ourselves. It is a creature that represents the tension between civilization and nature, between control and chaos, between the known and the unknown. And as long as we continue to grapple with these forces, the werewolf will remain a symbol of the human experience, a creature of legend that continues to evolve, just as we do.